Welcome to the Win, Make, Give Wealth Series. We are knees deep. Knee deep?
Just knee deep.
Just knee deep.
There are two knees, yet the expression is
We are deep into the Wealth Series, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice recovery.
That was Chad Himes correcting me and Bob Stewart laughing at me. This is Ben Kinney. And as always, we have Dave Weld in the background.
Who apparently has a sound to his voice now.
Hey, guys. Okay. We're just having fun today. Man, I'm excited. We've talked about a reality check. We've talked about our net worth. We've figured out how to increase our income, save like crazy, compound interest. We've talked about planning for retirement. We've built up some reserves. We've learned about the buckets of wealth.
My favorite topic right there.
We figured out the financial instruments and the stock market and some advanced strategies. We're to another bucket.
Yep.
And this bucket is one of my favorite buckets because it's what I've lived in for so long. And
literally?
Yeah, and figuratively.
Yeah.
All combined. The real estate bucket.
Yes.
The real estate bucket is so important because honestly, it's one of the number one things that generates net worth in first world countries.
Yes, and we're talking real estate as in ownership and investment opportunities, not as the business side of it that you have been involved with as well.
Yeah. Owning real estate.
Yes.
Owning your home.
And
owning
more of them.
More of them. Investing in rentals, vacation rentals,
Owning
commercial real
his
estate,
home. Yes.
all that kind of stuff. This is a very, very important session because for a little bit of money down, you can generate a massive return. And I'm going to have Bob do some math with me real quick. I like to give Bob math assignments and give him no warning, and I just don't give Chad anything.
I will tell you, I got a little bit of warning this time. He gave me a stack of white paper for scratch pad. He's like, here's a scratch pad and get your calculator out, but he didn't tell me what we're doing. So
here's the only math I can do when it comes to this kind of stuff. 90% of all millionaires become so through owning real estate. That's the math I can do from the stuff I've been checking and calculating out here. 90% of millionaires say it's real estate that have built their wealth. That's why this episode's so important.
I like it. So we're going to talk about real estate. I need you to go to winmakegive.com/wealth and make sure you're registered for this wealth series. Really, this episode is one of the ones that I want you to make sure that you've downloaded the workbook and you could follow along. We have example charts, recommendations for calculators. We give you spreadsheets and you can kind of fill in the blank and walk on this journey with us. But before we do,
Ben, anytime they go through this, they can go, even if the live going through of Wealth Series is done, they can still go back and register to get access to the resources. We've made them free to everybody.
Okay, that sounds good. Bob?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right. Bob, if I was to invest $10,000 into the stock market, and that investment went up 20% over a couple of years total, what would my stock account be worth?
$12,000.
$12,000. It's not bad. Didn't do much. It happened.
Yep.
Well, let's say that I bought a piece of real estate and I bought it for low down, like owner occupied, 3% down, Bob, and I bought a little over $300,000 property and I put $10,000 down. So with
You
me?
invested $10,000 into this real estate as well.
Yeah, let's just say it's worth $300,000.
Okay.
In the stock market, we just made a 20% return, Chad.
Yep.
Let's say in the real estate market, we didn't get a 20% return, but that real estate went up by 4%. Does that 4% go up on the cash I put down, Bob?
No.
It goes on what?
The purchase price of the house, the value of the home.
So the value of the home is up how much?
4% of $300,000, $12,000.
So when you take $12,000 in increased net worth because your home is now worth $12,000 more, and you compare it to the $10,000 you put down, what is your rate of return?
120%.
Okay, what was your rate of return on putting $10,000 into the stock market?
20%.
Which one's better?
120 is better than
I
20.
know this
Chad,
one.
I should
I
have
know
gave you
this
that
one.
one. I totally should have gave you that one. I mean, yeah, clearly.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is the power of investing in a leveraged asset, because your return isn't just based on the cash you put into it. It often is based on the value of the asset that you were able to get a loan on. Now, I just took a simple benefit of appreciation and said, Bob, let's calculate our return based on that. But there's lots of other benefits of real estate. One, principal reduction. It's forced savings, because every month that you pay a payment, you pay down the principal, which creates more equity in your property, right?
Yep.
Now, if you don't live in that home and you rented it out to somebody, it's somebody else paying down your principal and creating wealth for you, right?
That's right.
There's a third benefit. Real estate has one of the best tax benefits of any asset type. For a primary residence, you can write off 100% of your interest, 100% of your taxes. If you rent it out, you can depreciate it. You can move it from one property to another property and never pay taxes by doing something called a 1031 exchange. There are lots of benefits, not even including one of my favorites was when you're done living there, you can rent it out to somebody else and generate cash flow. So in my mind, those are the 4 easy benefits of owning real estate, Chad. Let me go through it with you one more time.
One more, please.
Appreciation.
Yes.
And the average appreciation in the United States over the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years has been over 4%
Okay.
annually. And if you owned a home in the last 3 or 4 years, it was 20%, 28%, 19%, 10%.
Right.
Maybe last year it was down a little bit, but over a long period of time, it's been phenomenal.
Right.
It's
So even in those little times when it drops, if you don't sell, you're not losing anything. It'll go back up as it continues to overall.
Yeah.
Okay. So appreciation is number 1.
Principal reduction, somebody else paying it off.
Okay. Principal reduction is number 2.
Number 3, tax benefits.
Tax benefits,
Number 4, if you rent it out, you get cash flow.
cash flow.
Those are 4 massive benefits in owning real estate. So if you're listening to this call, I built a calculator that you can download if you have an Android or an iPhone,
Wow.
and it's called the Place Mortgage Calculator.
What a guy. That's actually, I'm surprised. You did it for both?
I was like, wow. It's nice.
I feel sorry for Android users, so I made it for both. It's called the Place Mortgage Calculator. All you need to do is go to wherever you get your apps, type in Place Mortgage Calculator, and then download the app.
Doing it right now.
I want you to do 2 different things on this. One, I want you to use a mortgage calculator.
On the bottom is where you click on calculator.
Yeah, click on calculators, click on mortgage calculator, and then you can figure out, hey, what is the average price home in my area? What if I put 5% down or 3% or 20% or whatever? What is the interest rate today for me? You can go Google it or whatever. Let's say it's about 5.8 or whatever. And then you figure out what would your monthly payment be. That's just step 1. But that ain't the calculator I want you to live in. The one I want you to live in is called the value of home ownership. So, Chad, let's do this together.
Okay.
We're going to go down to the calculator.
Yep.
Everybody, you're going to follow along in the workbook, and you're going to fill out one of these answers by using the calculator.
Got it.
We're going to go down, and the workbook will have a different exercise numbers. But Chad, we'll make this up as we go.
You got it.
You're going to click Get Started.
Get started. Done.
Okay. Then you're going to adjust the purchase price.
Okay. Average homes in my area about 400,000.
Great.
That?
That sounds good. So
Okay.
we're going to do 400,000. And then, Chad, we're going to say that we only put 5% down because we bought it owner occupied.
Okay.
But you can put 3.5% down. In some neighborhoods, you can put 0 down. We can help you get contact the agent that invited you to the Well Series, and they can help you get down payment assistance or grants for it or low down or whatever you need.
5%. Got it.
5%. And then loan term 30.
Yep.
I want you to do interest rate of 5.8.
5.8. Okay. Dang, my thumb won't work. All right.
get it to stop
5.8.
there.
I'll just type it in. Got it. Average appreciation. We're going to stick with that 4%.
Let's stick with 4%.
Okay.
And then, Chad, you're married, so we're going to go down and we're going to married. And let's for the annual income, let's do 170 to 326 because
Sure.
it's your income and Nita's income, right?
Okay.
Okay.
We discussed that on another episode. We pulled a hypothetical number. So
And then it automatically fills in the tax rate.
Yep.
And then click View Results.
View results, Ben.
What does it tell you earn your first year with appreciation?
$16,000.
Just out of curiosity for a lot of you, if you had an extra $16,000 in net worth this year by simply doing something as simple as owning a house, how would you feel?
I'd feel fantastic.
I've never had a landlord walk up and say, hey, I really, really appreciate you being here. Here's an extra $16,000 for sticking with me.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Doesn't work that way.
Okay. 16,000 is pretty good.
Yep.
That's just at a 4% appreciation.
Correct.
Okay, next one. Principal reduction. It means we pay down our own mortgage or our renters pay down our mortgage. So now we have more net worth, right?
Yep.
How much did we earn in principal reduction? Did you hit the next button?
$4,843. You're almost there, Bob. I hit the next button. It
All
did
right.
the math for me.
Got it.
I love apps that do the math for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry we made this thing.
$4,843.
Yep.
Do the next one.
I was gonna say it sounds to me like I'm making.
What do you
more money.
save in taxes? Because you get to write off your property taxes and your interest.
Yep, $52.59.
$5,259 less dollars you have to pay in taxes.
Correct.
Click view summary.
View summary, Ben.
How much does that equal?
$26,102.
What is the little guy doing at the bottom of the screen?
I'm guessing he's dancing and giving me a woohoo.
He is celebrating.
Yeah,
He's celebrating.
fireworks and everything.
Because he got $26,102 by simply owning a home.
By the way, woohoo, onomatopoeia.
Oh, well done, Bob Stewart.
You're welcome.
Now, that's every year. It's not the first year, that's every year.
Every year.
It just gets better and better and better and better. This is significant. So everybody, take the time to figure out what is the value to your net worth and home ownership by downloading the Place Mortgage Calculator and doing this calculation and filling it out in the workbook. Because in this situation, you get to easily calculate the 3 benefits of home ownership. And you don't calculate the 4th one in this, because the 4th one, you'd have to rent it out, move
For the
out,
cash flow.
or rent out your bedrooms or whatever that might be to figure out cash flow.
But Ben, if I had this exact same situation and I was renting the house out instead of actually being there, I guess the tax numbers would be a little bit different. Yet at the same time, it's just going to increase that.
Yeah, you could depreciate it where you can't depreciate it if you own or occupy it, but you can depreciate it if it's a rental.
Right.
It actually gets pretty good overall. You'd be pretty happy.
Okay.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the first step in taking advantage of the bucket of wealth called real estate is owning your own home.
Primary residence, you mean?
The reason you own your own home first, Bob, is because it is the best rate, the easiest to qualify, and the lowest down payment. A lot of times people want to jump into investing, but when you invest in real estate, you have to put a larger down payment down. Maybe you got to put 20% or 25% or 30% or something like that as a down payment. And for a lot of us, saving up 20% or 25% on a home, that's hard. We could save up 20 grand by borrowing from our 401k or cutting expenses or doing a side job or whatever, but saving up 75 grand might be something that feels impossible. So one of the things that I recommend is that you buy a home, you paint the cabinets, you improve the home, you fix the landscaping, you clean the floors, you do all the things, you make it nicer, right? And it goes up in value. But in 2 years or 3 years, Bob, instead of selling it like our parents did, we rent it out to one of our friends for more than our payment. And then we go buy another one. If we do that, we now have a friend paying off the mortgage of that, and the excess rent above our mortgage payment is now helping us pay our payment on our next house. And I want you to do that for 2 years and then do it again. If you did it 5 times, Bob, how many years would that take you?
10.
10. You bought 5 homes in 10 years, one every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you just kept those homes and you never sold them, and they went up by a nominal amount, say 4%, and rents went up at a nominal amount, and you can do all this because once you go to winmakegive.com/wealth and register, Chad, You're going to get the email. We're going to text it to you, or you can go into the Facebook group and you'll get a link for the workbook and for these spreadsheets. We've created a spreadsheet for you called the 5 home in 30 years calculator, which is really buying 5 homes in 10 years, then keeping them for 30 years.
Okay.
And there's also a tab at the bottom, the 10 homes in 30 years, which is buying the same amount of homes every 2 years, but just doing it over a 20-year period where you buy a total of 10 homes.
Okay.
If I was to go and say my appreciation on average is 5%, because in my area it's a little bit better, and my annual rent increase was 2.5%, and my expected vacancy rate was 5%. 5% of the time I didn't have a tenant. And my expenses were blah, blah, blah. You can go into this calculator and you type it in, and it'll tell you what all the value of these 30 homes, of these 5 homes would be worth in 30 years. And in my example, it's $8,386,944. I just simply downloaded the 5 homes in 30-year calculator, and I filled out what I wanted my appreciation, vacancy, and rent increase to be, and it gave me a number. Now, you guys, give me your numbers. What did you do? I started at an average $250,000 price and 5% appreciation. Bob, what did you do? Or Chad, what did you do?
I'm still putting it in, Ben. Hang on a sec.
Well, since they are slower than molasses, I'm going to start at $300,000 average price, and I'm going to change it to 4% appreciation, which means on my first property I paid $300, on my second property I paid $375, and my third I paid $468, and it goes up a little bit. I would have put a total of about $110,000 down over 10 years. But in 30 years, the value of those 5 homes at 4% annual appreciation would be $7.899 million.
10.177 for me. I'm putting it at 400,000. That's kind of the average sales price where I am.
Okay, at 4% appreciation.
I just left it at 4% using the trends.
Anyway, so what I want all of you to do is to download this worksheet and put in what do you think your first home price is going to be, or what is it currently? And then allow the worksheet to do the rest of the math and monkey with some of these numbers. Because the secret to having a lot of wealth might be as simple to making a commitment, Bob, to buy 5 homes in the next 10 years. 5 homes in the next 10 years. Or you could go down to the 10-year calculator or the 10-home calculator and do the same thing and see what would 10 homes purchased over the next 20 years and kept for a total of 30 years be worth. And that would be worth $10.6 million. That's if it only 4% appreciation. If I got 5% appreciation and I started at $300,000, be worth $13 million. The reason I bring this up, everybody, is the secret to being wealthy is to not sell things that go up in value. Therefore, the secret to continue to being poor is to sell stuff that goes up in value over time.
I wish you had told me that like 30 years ago.
I didn't know you 30 years ago.
Feels like it.
I knew this, and we sold a house if I could go do it again, I wouldn't. But they send me a little update. They still think I own the house. One of those, and they send me this update in my email, and like the value of that house today makes me want to throw up every time I see it.
Well, and we've said that before in conversations, right? Whoever drives by a home they used to own and says, "Wow, I'm glad I sold that one," right? I mean, they all go up in value.
We're going to show you in the financial instrument sections and the compound interest sections of the Wealth Series, how easy it is investing a nominal amount of money per year over a long period of time is to generate millions and millions of dollars to be a millionaire in your retirement account alone. And I just showed you how a small commitment to buy a home every couple of years could lead to having $8 million or $10 million in equity in real estate over the next 30. There is zero excuse to not have a net worth in the millions if you're willing to follow what we teach in the Wealth Series and be committed to living on less than you earn, investing the rest, and not withdrawing it. Just be a committed long-term, as Warren Buffett would say, a patient investor.
Yeah, and for all those people out there who have been going through the Wealth Series, Ben, and we love the ahas and the conversation they're having in our Facebook group. That's Win, Make, Give, if you're not there yet. There are people who are saying things like, "Oh my gosh, I did my net worth and it's shocking, it's horrible, it's scaring me." Okay, we've been there, right? We've all been there where our net worth had a big negative in front of it. This is the path that you've laid out that shows anybody, no matter where you are today, you never know where you could be in 5 years from now.
Yeah. So the first time we did the Well series, this is basically what we covered, and we stopped there.
Yes.
But people said, "Hey, I want to dive a little bit deeper into real estate investing." So we're going to finish the rest of this part, and then we have an additional part after that that has more examples with one of our friends and experts, where we're going to dive in to more specific real estate investing. And I'll probably talk to you about some of the actual deals and transactions I've done in the cities and states and places where I'm investing personally.
How to identify maybe what a good deal would look like, maybe a little of the vacation rental conversation in detail.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But before we do, I got more to cover.
That's awesome.
Let's go into from being a owner-occupied investor, meaning you're buying houses to live in because it's low down, and you're going to move to the next one and buy it owner-occupied because it's low down and best rates and easiest to qualify. You've done that 5 times or 10 times or whatever.
Yep.
And you still have extra money left over at the end of the year after you funded your retirement and you built up your reserves and you bought your owner-occupied house, and you want to invest more in real estate. What are you going to do? Well, the first thing is, as Tom, our friend says, he says, we're gonna tell you later, but he talks about knowing your facts and knowing your information. You got to be an educated investor.
Yep.
So you got to read books. Like I got the loopholes of real estate here. I got How to Invest in Real Estate. One of my friends wrote Long Distance Investing. David Green. He's one of the Bigger Pockets host. Jay Papazan was very involved in the Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and he follows that path of investing. And we have other friends that wrote the book Hold, and the McKissick's, I believe, right?
Lyndon and Jimmy.
And they just are great examples of real estate investors that consistently do it over a period of time. So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to real estate investing is the different types of financing that are available. And the reason I want to talk about financing is because the type of financing you get is going to dictate how much cash you need to put into the investment, so you'll know if it's even possible.
Okay.
And then the next part, we're going to do math together with Bob.
Yes.
And we're going to do some calculations, and you need to know how much cash it's going to take you to do the next step of the calculations.
Okay.
So the first type of financing we've already talked about is owner financing. Owner financing has the benefits of being the easiest to qualify. FHA, VA, rural housing, conventional 5% downs. Like, it's easier. You don't have to have perfect credit. You don't have to have a ton of money down. It's anywhere from 0 to 5%. It's pretty awesome.
Okay.
Easiest. Lowest down. Next, the best rates. Because investors, the government, mortgage companies, they see owner-occupied homes as things that get defaulted on the least.
Correct.
People are going to give up their investment, second home, or rental property before they give up their primary home, so they give you a better rate for it.
There you go.
Lowest down, best rates, easiest to qualify for, and it gives you time to improve it yourself, Chad, because you live in it. You can do the remodels and
Sweat
over time.
equity.
Yeah, sweat equity. I like that.
Yep.
Let's talk about the next type of financing that might be an option. Let's say you live in Phoenix, and in the summer, all parts of your body are sweaty. You're like, parts of your body, Bob, that you lived there, that you didn't think could sweated.
They do. And even when you go in the pool, it didn't help when it's 115.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, like, I got to get the heck out of the valley. So a lot of my friends, they got second homes in Pine Top or those different, where Travis Bard lives.
Prescott. My mother-in-law's there.
Yeah. So you go up there and you say, I'm going to buy a second home. In second home financing, right now, you can get it second home financing for probably 10% down.
Okay.
It's not quite as good as owner occupied loans,
because they know you're not in it all the time,
but it's still pretty easy to qualify for it. It has a pretty good rate, and it's low down, 10% down. So second home.
While we're talking about Phoenix and you're taking your notes over there, can I just say hi to Bethany?
Sure.
Because she's in Phoenix.
Oh, Bethany is in Phoenix.
Yeah,
That's
she's
good.
one of our favorites.
Well, so is Travis.
There you go. Well, we already said hi to Travis.
Oh, Well, we have lots of people. I don't want to go through
Yeah.
everybody. that lives in Phoenix.
Uh-oh. Chad, did he open like a can of worms for us, or?
Yeah, should we just start listing off?
Just
like,
listing
all
everybody
the
we know in
people?
Phoenix? That could be a
Uh-huh.
while.
Okay, so we're going to go and we're going to pay 10% down to buy a home up in the woods. Now, up here in Washington State, it's wet and cold. So we wouldn't care if it's hot in Phoenix. So we would go to Phoenix and buy a second home and put 10% down because they got a pool.
Snowbirds.
They got
Got it.
pools. I like
Okay.
pools.
Yeah.
It's 105. We don't care because we got to come back here and it's cold and wet.
Yep.
Okay, anyway, second home. The next type of financing we can get is investment. And you might be able to find a local bank that will do something like 20% down, but most likely, most investment properties, you're going to pay 25%, 30%, 35%, 40%. So I'm just going to put from 20 to 40% is going to be your down payment. If you were to go buy a rental, a duplex that you didn't live in, fourplex, and that kind of thing, a house in another area you're just going to rent out, you're going to put that much down.
And that's because they know the risk is higher
Yeah.
of you defaulting, because if you're going to give up something, you're going to give up that property in that situation.
Third type of financing.
Okay.
Fourth type, commercial. And commercial financing depends on two things. One, are you going to occupy it? So if you own a business and you want to buy a building for your business, you can get an SBA loan for as little as 10% down.
Okay.
So in some situations, an SBA loan with 10% down might be really great for you. And the payment actually might be less than what you're currently paying in rent for your business.
So we're still talking real estate. We've just flipped from residential to commercial in this situation.
Yeah, we started off homes,
Yep.
second homes.
Yep.
Then we went to investment properties, could be houses, duplexes, whatever.
Yep.
Now we went to commercial.
Okay.
Commercial is anything that's 5 units or more, like residential apartment buildings, 5 units or more, or any office, industrial, storage units, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And it's 25 to
40%.
40% down.
Okay.
Okay. Unless it's owner occupied, then you could probably get away with 10%.
Okay.
Lastly, there's owner financing. And owner financing allows you to go to the owner of the property and say, hey, I know you want to sell your property, but do you need all the cash now? And they might say, no, actually, we like having this the cash flow from this. Say, great, why don't I buy the property from you? But instead of me paying the bank interest, Bob, I'll pay you interest. And they'll, instead of getting $400,000 for their property, they're going to get $400,000 for their property plus 5% per year, because that's the interest that you're paying on it. It over time, by the time you're done in 5 or 6 years, when you refinance it and pay them off, they might have walked away with $475 or $500. That might be a way better return for them.
Sure.
And I bought a lot of properties personally on owner financing.
Okay.
And owner financing allows me to not jump through the hoops of getting a loan or turning in my taxes or doing all the other stuff. And I've done it in Bellingham, and I've done it in Utah, and I've done it all over. Simply, Chad, because I asked somebody if they'd be willing to do it.
Got it.
In fact, the home I own now and the home my dad lives in until he was flooded a couple weeks ago.
Right.
I bought that one first owner finance, and then I refinanced it out 5 years ago. Home I live in now, part of it is owner financing because the seller wanted it. It was important to them to help fund their retirement with that.
I bought my very first condo, $120,000 condo owner financing. And it was a 5-year kind of balloon deal where we had to, I had to refinance out of it in 5 years, but I had really bad credit at that point. But it was able to save a little money, put it down. That made the person I was buying it from confident that if they had to repossess it for me, at least they'd have that down payment money back, right? And then
Just out of curiosity, what's that $120,000 condo worth
Oh,
now?
don't do that to him.
Have you been tracking that at all?
no, I know. No.
Just
Pull it up right now.
what's the total value of all the houses you've ever owned, Bob? And just kidding.
I don't
Okay.
even want to know.
Don't let Ben find you 10 years from now and be asking you these same questions that I'm uncomfortably squirming under the weight
And I'm just
of
glad
over
he's
here.
looking at you right now.
These are 5 types of financing that require various forms of criteria and ease to get approved, that have various amounts of down payment. And they matter because we're going to do some math here in a minute.
Yep.
And the math matters
Yep.
when I think about what I look for in investing. So fill out your workbook, write down these 5 types of financing, then write down the ranges of down payments in the workbook, please.
As Ben just took us through them. So Ben, what you're saying, and the reason you're kind of laying this out for everybody is, look, maybe you're saying you want an investment property, yet you don't have that 20 to 40% down payment that Ben had mentioned. okay, can you get there by living in a place that's not that owner occupy, buy it, live in it, and then go buy somewhere else and then turn that into the investment property because you don't have, but you have that 5% down payment to make that move. Or maybe you can buy that second home concept and then turn it into an investment property down the road, which will give you these opportunities to buy in at a lower rate, as Ben was walking us through.
Yep.
Bob,
Now-
you ready? Because you get to do math.
Almost.
Okay.
Before I get to,
Take some water first, Bob.
Actually, I'm over here looking up how much that house is worth.
We'll get back to you then.
before I leave financing entirely,
Okay.
I just want to bring up one other thing that's important to think about when it comes to financing. And those are the terms. The terms include something we just talked about, which was how much down,
down
you
payment.
had. So for one of the terms for financing, write down down payment.
Okay.
What's really funny, if you were ever in this room, whenever we say something, we write it down too. So
Yes.
if we're ever awkwardly quiet, we're all writing down down payment.
Or you can actually hear Ben's Sharpie in the
Yeah.
microphone.
Here's the next term. What's the interest rate?
Okay.
Because that matters.
Absolutely.
Because your interest rate on one loan might make that property be a good deal, and an interest rate on a different loan might make that property be a bad deal. So it matters.
Yep.
Here's another term. The length of years.
Mm-hmm.
That's how long it's amortized for. They could have a commercial loan that's only for 10 years.
Right.
You could have a loan that's for 20 years or 25 or 30. I've even seen some go out longer.
Yep.
Sometimes they have terms where it's amortized divided by 30 years, but you have to pay it off within 5 or 10. So you have to get a new loan in 5 years or 10 years.
Yep.
And then the last term that I want you to write down because it matters, number 4, is can you pay interest only, or do you have to pay principal and interest?
Okay.
Because that matters. If you could get an interest only loan,
Yep.
you potentially could save a bunch of money monthly and annually that you could use to improve the property or to pay it off later or whatever that might be. It could make the property perform better.
Because those interest-only loans usually are going to have a balloon payment at the end of them at some point that says, okay, now pay up.
Yeah.
Right.
So financing terms, down payment, how much total you're going to put down and what percentage it is,
Yep.
interest rate, what's your rate,
Yep.
and how long is it fixed for? It's
Right.
probably important. Number 3, how many years is the loan for, or when is it due?
Right.
And then number 4, is interest only an option?
Mm-hmm.
That changes the dynamics of is this a good deal or not a good deal.
Okay.
Okay, y'all follow me so far?
I am. And if I can,
I'm here.
Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about why is it that we invest. There's way too many people in the world right now that are focused on the number of units they own or the number of doors. And they talk about it. Well, I own 80 doors or 40 doors or 10 doors or 8 doors or 74 doors.
Right.
In a perfect world, I would own 1 door and make all the money that I needed to live my life and retire. Having more doors is just an ego statement. Doesn't matter how many properties you own. Our goal is cash flow. Our goal is to flip the triangle and have a lot of assets that generates a lot of cash flow,
So what
passive
you're,
income.
what you're saying, if I understand clearly, is you're saying I'd prefer to have 1 door that was paid off, that was bringing in a large cash flow, than having lots of doors that are bringing in little cash flows?
Not necessarily paid off, Chad.
Okay.
I would rather have the least amount of properties to manage
Yes.
that generate the most amount of free cash flow
Okay.
after my payment is
Got it.
due. Right?
Yep.
That might mean that I have no payment, like you suggested,
Yep.
or it might mean that I have a mortgage, but after I pay my mortgage, I still have my cash flow goal.
Right.
So you might wake up as you're thinking about real estate investing and saying, you know what? Over the next couple of years, I want to get to the point where I have $10,000 a year coming in above and beyond my mortgage payments. Because with that $10,000, that would fund me buying a house every couple of years. That would fund my retirement.
Yep.
Your next goal might be, I want to get to 20,000 or 30,000 or 100,000 or $1 million or whatever that is. You might say, I want to get to $100,000 a year in cash flow for my properties because I don't want my spouse, my honey bunny, my partner to work anymore.
Sure.
And that's what it would take to retire them, or for me to retire so I could focus on fixing up properties or doing what I care about, right? So all of this should be tied back to an end goal, And that end goal shouldn't be an ego goal of the number of units or the total value of these properties. It should be to how do I increase my net worth and how do I increase my passive income?
So if you're saying 10,000, just to play that back again, Ben, you're saying $10,000 a month is what I want to make. I'm just going to use an easy number here. That you would prefer to have as few doors as possible to make that 10,000 over. So if you're making 2,000 per door, having 5 instead of saying, well, I've got 20 doors and each one's only making me $500 to equal the same thing, because it's less of a headache to
There's
have.
less risk. There's less opportunity for vacancies on your rentals. There's less opportunities for random expenses to
So
come
in this
up,
case,
right?
Do you
less
want to
is
have
more.
88 tenants calling you on Saturday night, or would you rather have one?
Yeah.
I'd rather have none of them because I'm going to hire a property manager.
Right.
That's a different conversation.
Okay. So now that we're kind of setting our mind right, I want to talk about why is it that we invest.
Okay.
And sometimes people invest for the wrong reasons, like ego, and they end up doing the wrong thing and they buy a bunch of stuff and they get, too much pressure or too much financial strain or whatever, and they get rid of them and they say, hey, this is a pain. But there's 2 reasons why we invest. Number 1, we're buying something under market value.
Okay.
We shouldn't buy anything over market value.
That would be silly.
And if you're really an investor, you shouldn't buy it at market value. You should be buying it under market value.
Right.
We want to be in the wholesale purchase business, not in the retail purchase business. So one of the reasons why we would invest is because we know we're getting a good deal on it. That good deal could be, in my mind, my first property was a duplex. It wasn't necessarily under market value, but I knew that one of the tenants would cover 100% of my mortgage, so I could use all the rent I was paying prior to save up for a down. The second property I bought, I was walking by and it looked overgrown. Chad, you lived in that house with me. And I'm like, that property looks neglected. I bet you I could buy it for a good deal. And I bought it for a decent deal. And there was 2 benefits of it. One, it had an unfinished basement. So I was able to remodel the basement and add square footage.
I appreciate that you did that.
Because you live there.
I needed a place to live.
So I had 1,327 square feet on the first floor. But by remodeling the basement, I added an equal 1,326 or 27 square feet. So then I have a 2,600 square foot home.
Right.
Right?
And
The next benefit was I realized that it had enough land in there that I could actually cut a lot off. And if I wanted to, I could build an extra house. So I got a lot for free. So you may not have bought it under market value for a 1,300 square foot home, but I bought it under market value for a 2,600 square foot home.
Yep.
And I bought it way under market value because it came with a free lot.
Yep.
Do you think about this? What is it that you could do to establish more value in a property? Could you add a unit? Could you cut off a lot? Could you add square footage? Could you change the zoning? Could you tear it down and build something else? Could you increase the rents? Like, what is it that you could do where you see value that everybody else didn't? Number 2, we buy things because they cash flow.
okay.
Cash flow means if your mortgage payment is $1,000 and your rent is $1,100, you would have,
$100 cash flow.
assuming you had no utilities, no expenses, no repairs.
I can cover that math, Bob.
Just easy stuff.
right.
But if you bought a property that had $1,000 a month mortgage payment and it rented out for $1,000, you have no cash flow.
Right.
That makes no sense in buying the property because how are you going to get your down payment back? How are you going to cover repairs, Bob?
Yeah, you don't.
Right? How are you going to improve the property? How are you? It doesn't make any sense. In the moment that you have a vacant property, you no longer have a cash flow. You have a negative cash flow because for the month of January when they moved out, you're fixing the carpets, you're painting it yourself, and you're covering the mortgage.
Right.
That creates stress and it's unnecessary. So I want to make sure that 1, if possible, I'm buying it under market value.
Sure.
And 2, it cash flows enough to do something, Bob, that I call cash on cash return. To give me a return on the amount of money I put down. So if I bought a $400,000 property, Bob, and I put 5% down, I would have put $20,000 down on the home.
Yep.
Let's assume that I didn't have to do any repairs or improvement or anything like that. Just that's what it is. If I could cash flow $500 a month, I would have $6,000 a year in free cash flow. I would take that $6,000 and I would divide it by the $20,000 I put down, and you would end up with
333.
3.33. That means my cash on cash return, I would get all my cash back in 3.33 years. I'm looking to get all my down payment back in under 5 years, if possible. Because if I got my down payment back in 5 years, Chad, what could I do with my down payment?
Go buy something else.
I could do it again, and I could do it again, and I could do it again. When you buy a property that doesn't cash flow, you can't do it again. You got to go work hard and make more money to do it again.
So is that the simple equation you'll sit down and do when a property presents itself in front of you? You'll just quickly look at it and say, how much do I need to put down? How much am I going to cash flow based on what my mortgage would be versus what rents are in the area? Boom, let me do the math, make sure it equals at least less than 5 before I'd even look closer.
Yeah, Bob, let's do the math and let's work with Chad real quick on what he just said. If I had a $400,000 property and I put 5% down like we just talked about, we put 20% down and we had a 3.33 years to get all of our down payment back, right?
Yep.
But let's say we bought it as an investment property and it wasn't occupied. It wasn't owner occupied. We bought it as an investment property and we had to put 25% down.
Yeah.
How much did we put down?
100,000.
Does that $100,000 we put down change the amount of money we get for rents?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Still going to get the same $500, well, not $500 cash flow because your cash flow is going to change because you're going to have a different rate, but your rent's going to still be whatever it was.
It's going to take you 200 months to recover your, right? Like something crazy.
There's a big difference in your cash on cash return
Right.
based on the amount of money you put down. That was my kind of point of this exercise. So our goal of generating cash flow is so that we can reinvest it and do it again, so that we can have somebody paying this property off and increasing our net worth through appreciation and principal reduction, and so that we can save money and build wealth so that we can continue to do this time and time again, because we want to wake up in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or 20 years and have our retirement 100% funded by these investments.
Okay, I want to challenge and ask a question at the same time because we're all learning here, right? And Bob and I have said it again and again. We'll hear it 100 times before it finally clicks for us when Ben says it sometimes. You just said earlier you'd prefer to make the money instead of having the doors, right? I mean, the doors are going to bring the money, but if I could have less with less stress, I'm going to do it. Okay. Yet you're saying this example Bob did was 3.3 years, right, Bob? To be, and you'd go buy another one. Would you buy another one, or would you say I can put more money down to the principal on that to bring that down so that I'm cash flowing even bigger before having a second door? Or are we looking at, well, the appreciation of real estate means I want that second door?
Let's do the math, Bob. I love that question, Chad. We have a $400,000 property. Chad, if we went to the place mortgage calculator and we put that in there, it was the math you already did.
Yep.
You would have 16,000 in appreciation,
Right.
plus
48, 43, and
5,000 in principal reduction.
Yep.
And I'm not even going to worry about tax savings right now. So let's
Sure.
say you're going to make 21,000 a year.
Okay.
You could take your extra cash flow on top of that. We said was 6,000.
Yep.
Right? And you could use that 6,000 to pay it off.
Right.
And then you would pay it off much sooner.
Correct.
But let's say what happens, Bob, if instead of paying it off in the next couple of years, we bought another $400,000 home. We wouldn't be making $16,000 a year in appreciation on one. We'd be making $16,000 appreciation on two.
32,000 is
That's
what you're
right.
saying on the property.
Plus,
side.
we'd be making principal reduction.
Right.
Plus, we'd have the tax benefits.
Yep.
So I would buy more and more properties
Okay.
until I hit my financial goals,
Okay.
plus some fudge room.
Yep.
Like, we never know how much money we're really going to need.
Correct.
But I would only buy another property if it was under market value.
Yep.
And or it cash flowed enough to give me my down payment back in under 5 years.
Okay. So it's not just about the doors. The doors is going to be an ego thing, yet you are going to be adding multiple doors because it's going to help me grow my net worth quicker by
Then
being able to say,
maybe-
let me bring another one on.
For some of the people that are maybe a little bit further down this arc, like, would you at some point start to like 1031 exchange some of these and start to consolidate maybe a couple, like maybe got 5 residential doors down into one, apartment building or something? Like, is that a part of your strategy at all, where you realize like I can start to get out of more of these properties and into bigger ones?
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that a little bit in the advance call, Bob.
Okay.
But yeah, like if I had a property that continued to have repair issues or tenant problems, and I had a bunch of equity and I could put it into something that had less heartache and more cash flow, I would consider moving it. I wouldn't sell it and just keep the cash. I would only move it
On a
to another
1031.
asset.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first equation that we talked about today is called cash on cash return. And that equation is actually cash on cash return equals cash flow divided by cash invested.
I feel like I'm back in high school math.
How much
They
money?
should have taught us this in high school.
Yes,
math.
they should have.
Didn't, by the way, but
Cash flow is simply how much money do you have after all your bills are paid,
Right?
and then divided by how much cash did you put into it,
that'll give you the number of months that it would take you to retrieve that money.
or the number of years, depending on if you did it monthly or
It'll be
annual.
monthly or yearly cash flow. Got
Yeah.
it.
That's important. And the reason when we started talking about investing today, started talking about financing options,
Right.
is it dramatically changes it, because it changes how much money that you put down, and it doesn't necessarily change how much rent you get from the property.
Some of those, like interest only versus paying the principal. If you had an interest only option, all of a sudden your cash on cash return could, like, those numbers are different, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Or if you're forced to put 20% down instead of 5.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's another equation that all of us learned in real estate school, and some of you might be aware of if you're listening. It's called cap rate. And Chad, just Google the definition of cap rate and let's see what the dictionary or Investopedia just says for me.
Cap rate, calculated by dividing a property's net operating income by its assets value. The cap rate is an assessment of the yield of a property over 1 year.
Okay. It basically calculates your rate of return.
Yes.
And the equation is cap rate equals net operating income, or we abbreviate it NOI,
NOI. Yep.
over purchase price. Let me do that one more time. Net operating income is simply your rents minus your expenses, but that doesn't include your mortgage payment. So your management fees, your repairs, your utilities, whatever it is. So Bob, you have a calculator?
yep.
So if you had a $20,000 net operating income after all expenses were paid, and you were looking to pay $800,000 for the property, you would take $20,000 divided by $800,000, and you would be able to tell us what the cap rate would be.
2.5%.
2.5%. That's not very good. Let's take our other example of $6,000 of net operating income on the last house we talked about. That's $6,000, Bob, divided by $400,000, which is what we paid for it, gives us a cap rate of what?
1.5%.
That's not good either.
Not very good, is it?
Do you have a cap rate range, Ben, that you're looking for when you're looking at an investment opportunity?
I do. Let's take one example.
Okay.
The first duplex that I ever purchased.
Okay.
And the first duplex that I ever purchased, I got $1,200 per side.
There you go.
And there was 2 of them because it
Yep.
was a duplex.
Duplex.
So I got $2,400 per month.
Okay. So
Bob,
Bob, what's that over a year?
we'll take 2,400 times 12.
Yep. 28,800.
Let's say after utilities, garbage, lawn care, everything, I managed it myself, so I didn't have management fees and didn't really need repairs. I did the work myself.
Okay.
Let's just say there was 3,800.
Sure.
That leaves me 25,000 a year
Yep.
in what we call net operating income. Okay?
Okay.
But I paid 228,000 for it. Let's take 25,000 divided by 228,000, and that'll give him my cap rate.
Which is?
10.96.
I got nearly an 11% cap rate on that property. That is good. And many times the last couple of years, people were buying properties that were at 4 cap rates and 5 cap rates and 6 cap rates. But interest rates were really low. So they could. But now as interest rates get higher, we pay more for a monthly payment. Cap rate doesn't tell you the amount of money you cash flow after your mortgage payment because it doesn't include mortgage payment as one of your expenses. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this, as everybody talks about cap rate, that doesn't tell me a lot because they don't, that doesn't tell me what I'm going to cash flow because I have to pay my debt on it, my mortgage payment. Now my mortgage payment was $1,205. So you could take the $25,000 we talked about and subtract 1,205 times 12.
Yeah, which is 14,460 minus the 25,000. So you were 10,540.
So I cash flowed 10,540. I bought that first duplex owner occupied, Bob. So I only had to put 3% down back then. So I put 3% down on 227. 228.
6840. I mean, you recovered in like 7 months.
I got it back quick, didn't I?
Yeah, 8 months, something like that.
Now, Ben, let me ask, what are you getting? What's your NOI on that duplex today?
Today
Bob, take this down.
Today that duplex rents out at $2,400 a side.
Okay, so $4,800 a month over the course of the year, Bob. That's
4,800 times 12 is going to be 57,600.
Ben, give me a ballpark on market value of property today.
800,000 at least, maybe.
Bob, what's
900.
the cap rate on the property now?
Do it, Ben, based on that. You do it based on what you paid for it.
If I sold it to somebody,
You-
they would base it on the price they paid for it and the rents that it have today.
Right.
So,
So I want to know what
so
that would
be a
if-
7.2% cap
Okay,
rate.
would
if
you
sold
still
it
buy
today.
that property? I knew where I was going. Would you still buy that today as a 7.2 cap rate, something that you'd look closer at and say, yeah, that's a decent enough return?
here's the challenge. Because today, because I like the home that I live in, I wouldn't buy it owner occupied.
Right.
And the bank would probably look at me sideways if they saw me moving from my house, which is not super fancy, but it's nice, right? Into a duplex that's half the size.
Yep.
They would probably think that was weird. So I'd have to put on 800,000, Bob, I'd have to put 25% down,
What?
200,000.
Yeah.
So I'd have to put 200,000 down. It would take me 4 or 5 years to get my down payment back, not including any mortgage payment or anything. It'd be 8 or 10 years by the whole thing said and done.
Yeah.
So that doesn't fall within my buy box today.
Got it.
So the reason I took a second to do this is I wanted to explain to you all when you hear about investing that cap rate isn't the most important thing because it doesn't give you the end number you need, which is your cash on cash return.
Okay.
How
So
much
don't get
money-
all caught up in people running around talking about this cap rate number all over the place sometimes.
But it's a very good number to just give you a rough idea.
I mean, if you want to take a closer look.
Yeah.
If the cap rate's going to come back at a 2, you're probably not even going to look deeper. The cap rate's coming up near 10. Yeah, you're going to look closer to see if it's worth it.
I'm going to show you all a very, very simple way to use cap rate to help you in a variety of situations. So
Okay.
Bob, this is where I need your super math skills.
All right.
Cap rate equation is cap rate equals NOI over price. You with me?
Yep.
Let's say my net operating income is $10,000 per year, which right now I could find a property that cash flowed something like that in Birmingham, Alabama, which I own a bunch of homes in. And I could pay as little as $100,000 for that property. So remember, your net operating income is $10,000.
Yep.
Purchase price is $100,000. Your cap rate is what?
10.
10%.
Yep.
Okay. But when you learn about math, this will kind of make some of our brain hurts. Chad, is cap rate is equal to NOI divided by price. But you can always move those variables around to solve for the other one. So if you wanted to solve for net income, Bob, you would take net income equals price times cap. So if all you knew was the price and somebody says, yeah, that is a 10 cap, you could calculate the
NOI.
net income because you would take it, do it for me once. You would take 100,000
Yep.
times 0.1, which is a 10% cap,
Which would be
equals
$10,000.
10,000. So if you knew the cap and the price, you would know how much the rents were and the net income was. Make sense?
Yeah.
There's one more variable, and that is price is equal to net income divided by cap. So take your net income of 10,000 and divide it by 0.1.
Equals the 100,000 we would pay for it. The price.
Yep. So let's do this again. Bob, I know that the property is cash flowing 25,000 a year.
Okay.
And I know the cap rate is 8%. What's the price of it?
312,500
You took 25,000.
divided it by 0.08.
Let me check your math. 312,000. Bob, let's pretend that we found a property that was for $2 million and it had a cap rate of 4%. What is our net income?
I'm not singing the Jeopardy theme song again, Bob. So.
Price, 2 million times
80,000.
0.04. Is that what it is?
Yeah, 2 million times 0.04, 80,000.
You knew that after all expenses, the rents had to be at least 80,000.
Like in that price example at 25,000 NOI and 8%, like you know you weren't paying any more than 312, right? If you wanted 8%, like if it was lower than that, you know you'd have a higher cap rate. If you got it for more than that, you'd have a lower cap rate. Like
that is a very good way for you to determine the price of a property. So if you knew your standard, Bob, let's do this one last time, then we'll move on. If you knew your standard in today was a 7 cap,
Yep.
and you knew from the owner that after all expenses were done, they had 22,000 in income, you would take 22,000 divided by 0.07. What's the most you would pay for it?
314,285.
It allows me to very quickly talk to any homeowner or any property owner because I know my standard for my cap rate, right? And if they could tell me how much they get in rents, and expenses, I could very quickly come back and say that's what I'd pay for it. It wouldn't give you a final price, but it would give you a starting point.
Yeah.
I know that all of this is going to sound confusing over a podcast. That's why we've never talked about cap rate or cash on cash returns or any of these numbers over a podcast. I apologize, but you have to learn it if you want to get into real estate investing. I would heavily recommend that you download the workbooks and you do a couple of the exercises that we work out in the workbooks on your own, as well as following along with us on what we did today, Chad.
Yeah, the only way you're going to get this, Ben, is going to be repetition is going to be the way. So this is an episode to listen to a few times. Even if you say, oh, I want to listen from this minute of the episode to hear that part again. The episodes are here for you. Listen again and again and again as they go through the workbook and do that. If you can't find it, make sure you look for the emails. Make sure you check the pinned posts that are in our Facebook group, Win, Make, Give. Now, Ben, you've been talking as we got into the financial instruments. I know you've got a stack beside you from when we talk about businesses and paying less taxes. You've kind of been giving us a few books maybe to read. Do you have some that go along with the real estate investing bucket?
I have 3 or 4 books. If you heard this call and you're confused, or you heard this call and you're excited and you want to jump into learning about real estate investing, that I think you should check out.
One, you should probably talk to the person who maybe invited you to the podcast. That would be a good place to start.
That's right. Brandon Turner wrote a book called Rental Property Investing. He was the founder of Bigger Pockets.
Got it.
Bigger Pockets also wrote a book with Brandon Turner and Joshua Dorkin called How to Invest in Real Estate.
Okay.
The new host of the Bigger Pockets podcast, Brandon Green, wrote Long Distance Investing.
Yep.
For those people that live in San Francisco or they live in areas where the average home price is really expensive and if they're having a hard enough time just buying a home, maybe they could invest in markets where you could buy a home for $50,000 or $80,000 or $100,000 or $200,000. One of my favorite books all time on real estate investing is called The Wealthy Code by George Antone. And you can actually find it online with a PDF for free if you just want to read the PDF or buy the book. George Antone's called The Wealthy Code. And then, of course, our friends Jay Papasan and Gary Keller wrote The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And then our friends, the McKissicks and Jay, wrote a book called Hold.
Right.
So
and we will
those
have
are-
all of these in the workbook for you folks, so you can remember if you're sitting there going, wait, what was that book? They'll all be in the workbook.
If you do these exercises and you do the math, you're going to walk away with a couple of things on your mind. One, the easiest way to build wealth in real estate is to buy owner-occupied homes and to buy 5 or 10 of them. If you walk away from anything from this call, that's what I want you to walk away with.
Yep.
Number 2, your financing matters. It's easier to get approved with owner-occupied homes. And afterwards, your down payment, your interest rate, all that matters. The only math you really need to know is your cash on cash return. How long does it take you to get your down payment back so you can do it again? We only buy properties that are under market value and that cash flow significantly enough to give our down payment back. And a little side win today is you learned how to use cap rate to solve for net income, how much rents they get, Chad.
Yep.
For price, what should the price of the property be? Or if you knew the net operating income and price, you could calculate the cap rate. A little bit of advanced math. Hopefully it made your brain hurt, and I hope you have a lot of fun in this episode. Next episode, we're going to walk through examples of investing and the different types, from mobile homes to apartment buildings to single-family homes to apartments. We're going to talk about different types of real estate investing as we dive in deeper into the Wealth Series.
Love it. Folks, make sure you are joining us in our Facebook group. Of course, that's Win, Make, Give. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're getting the workbooks. Make sure you're writing down the answer on the last page of the workbook for the giveaway question, because as we get closer and closer to the end, we're going to give you an opportunity to submit all of those giveaway answers to be entered in the drawing for $10,000. Now, folks, that doesn't mean you can't participate if the drawing's already happened. You can still get this information. You can still be the person who's buying property after property after property based on what we've shared with you here today. We want you to have wealth as you move forward in your life. On behalf of Ben, Bob, of course, Silent Dave in the background over there.
Bye.
We want to remind you, as always, do good.